Welcome to Math with Mr. P. Today we are doing Chapter 3, Lesson 8, 6th grade math. We are going to be dividing decimals by decimals. Today what we are going to learn is to change the divisor to a whole number by moving the decimal point. And we're also going to learn how to annex zeros in the quotient and dividend when necessary. Before we go to the book, we're going to do a few examples. So this one's going to be a big one as far as remembering what to do when your divisor is a decimal. For example, if I have 0.5 divided by 0.2, I'm going to need to make sure that I know which is which. The number being divided is known as your dividend. I'm going to fix that to look like a D and not a P. That is your dividend, and I did it again, but whatever. The number you're dividing by is your divisor. Now, as we learned last lesson, let me change the question a little bit. Let's say it was 0.5 divided by 2. Your divisor is a whole number. Nothing changes with the decimal just goes straight up in my answer, and 2 would not go into 0, 2 would go into 5. 4 times, that would be, 2 times, that would be 4. I'd get 1 left over, bring down to 0. My answer would be 0.25. When your divisor is a decimal, the game changes. So we're going to go back to our original problem, which is 0.5 divided by 0.2. What we must do when we're dividing and our divisor is a decimal, we need to move that decimal all the way to the right to make it a whole number. Now, we do this by jumping spots. That is just one jump in this example, just one. So we jump the decimal one time to the right. That will make this now 2. The 0 in front of it can disappear. But there's a rule. Whatever happens on the outside will need to happen on the inside. Since we did one jump to make this a whole number, I'm going to have to do the same jump on the inside. And now my decimal will be up here. Now, like I gave in the last example, if that number had already been a whole number and I did no jumps, my decimal would just go straight up. But because the outside for the divisor was a decimal, I now need to change the divisor to a whole number, and whatever happens on the outside happens on the inside. So, when I erase this, the decimal will go up there in the answer, and now I'll divide normally. 2 does not go into 0. 2 will go into 5 twice, which is 4. I'll have 1 left over, but I have a decimal there, so now I can annex all the zeros I want. 2 will go into 10 5 times, and I will be done. Now, remember, the original problem was 0.5 divided by 0.2. Let's plug it into our calculator and let's check. 0.5 divided by 0.2. This should equal 2.5, and it does. So again, the recapping of this is always if your divisor, which is the number you are dividing by, let me go ahead and let's get some text box so this can be in your notes. If the divisor or number you are dividing by is a decimal, the decimal must skip to the right until your divisor becomes a whole number. So again, if the divisor or the number you are dividing by is a decimal, the decimal must skip to the right until your divisor becomes a whole number. There's another part to this. You must then skip the decimal in the dividend number being divided, or inside number, to the right as many times as you did to the divisor or number we are dividing by or outside number. So you must then skip the decimal and the dividend, or number being divided, or inside number to the right as many times as you did the divisor, the number we're dividing by, or outside number. Decimal will then go straight up. Decimal will go straight up into answer. Now, let's discuss one thing. What if, so let's do an example from the book, actually. Let's go ahead and do an example from the book. Let's do 54.4 divided by 1.7. 54.4. 54.4 divided by 1.7, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this a little lower. So my first step again is to make my divisor a whole number. I can tell my divisor here is a decimal, so it needs to become a whole number. I will do that by skipping the decimal over to the right, all the way to the right. That's only one jump. Whatever happens on the outside must also happen on the inside, so my decimal will go right here in my answer. Now I can go ahead and erase everything else, and it'll basically now become 544 divided by 17. I will need to see how many times 17 will go into 5. It won't. I can put a 0 there if I want. Now I'm going to guess 17 goes into 54. I'm going to go ahead and start with 4. I may be a little higher than I would like, but this is why we guess and check. 4 times 7 is 28. Carry the 2. And I'm definitely going to be higher than I want because 4 times 1 will be 4 plus the 2 will be 6. So it will not be 4. I'm going to erase this work just so I have extra space here. But remember, in your notebook, you guys should keep every single one of these there in case it comes back to help you later. I'm going to do 17 times 3 now. 3 times 7 is 21. Carry the 2. 3 times 1 is 3 plus the 2 is 5. So it will be 3 times, which will equal 51. When I subtract, 4 minus 1 will give me 3. 5 minus 5 will give me 0. 17 will go into 3, bring down the 4. I'm now going to go ahead and guess 2. I'm going to guess and check 2. 2 times 7 will be 14. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3, so it'll go exactly 2 times. That'll be 34. And my answer then should be 32. And I'm going to check my work. We go back to the original problem. I clicked on the wrong thing, but it's okay. Let's go ahead and go back up to where we were. The original problem was 54.4 divided by 1.7. 54.4 divided by 1.7. And it is 32. As we see here in our example, it is 32. The decimal at the end doesn't matter now because it would be 0.0 anyway, and we would just get rid of it. Let's make one up, though. What happens if my decimal, let's say I'm dividing, I'm going to go ahead and divide 10 by 0.25. 10 is a whole number. What happens if I do this? I need this to become a whole number, so it's going to jump twice. There's no decimal on the inside to jump. But there is. When you have a whole number, it's the same thing as saying 0.0. Now I'm going to annex a few zeros because I know that if I jumped 1, 2 times on the outside, I'm going to have to do the same thing on the inside. 1, 2 jumps. I'm going to extend my box here, so my decimal is going to go right here in my answer. I'm going to go ahead and erase all this stuff. I'm going to actually turn these ones into the same color, and I'm going to erase this 0 and this decimal. So now it's like 1,000 divided by 25. Remember, the original problem was 10 divided by 0.25. We're going to keep that up here because when we solve it, it will give us our answer. We're going to guess and check, or we're going to plug it in and check our answer. 25 will not go into 1. It definitely won't go into 10. It will go into 100. It should go into 100 4 times. That will be 100. When I subtract, I have nothing left over. Now I have another 0, and instead of bringing down a 0 and doing that, we just bring the 0 up. My answer should be 40. That was a pretty easy one. Let's double check our work, though. 10 divided by 0.25 equals 40. So we did this right. So going back to the original problem, when our dividend doesn't have a decimal, we can add zeros to it. And you can add as many zeros as you want. It doesn't matter. But because this one jumped 1 2 times, I'm only going to jump this 1 2 times, bring that decimal up. These other zeros will just fade away. And then, like I redrew the question, I would just make this 1,000. And 25, it would be 1,000 divided by 25. So, notes. If the dividend is a whole number and the divisor is a decimal, we can annex zeros after a decimal in the dividend in order to solve the problem. Give you another example. Let's say I have 15 divided by 0.3. 15 is a whole number. The 0.3 needs to jump over 1 decimal to make it a whole number. I now need to do the same on the inside, which means this will be 15.0. Jump once, just like they did. Decimal will be up here. Apologize for that. And now it'll basically become 150 divided by 3. My decimal is still there because I jumped it over 1. This is now a whole number because I jumped it over 1. 3 will not go into 1. 3 will go into 15 5 times. That'll equal 15. And this is another example of this 0 left over. We just bring it back up into my answer. My answer should be 50. And we check our work. 15 divided by 0.3, which was the original question, is 50. So again, if the dividend is a whole number and the divisor is a decimal, we can annex zeros after a decimal in the dividend in order to solve the problem. So just because the inside doesn't have a decimal doesn't mean that I don't do anything. Going back to the original problem, the divisor needs to become a whole number, jumped over 1 to make it a whole number. 15 isn't a decimal, but it can become a decimal if I add a 0.0 or 0.0000 at the end. Because this jumped once, this will also need to jump once, making my decimal jump a spot. And that's it. And then the same would happen if it were, let's say, it were 0.03 instead. Decimal would need to jump 1 2 spots. I would now need to annex 2 zeros and jump 1 2 spots, and my decimal will be up here in my answer, and now it'll basically become 1,500 divided by 3. We're going to do a few more examples, and I think we're going to call this a video because I went over everything that I need to. We went over zeros in the quotient and the dividend. We went over making the dividend a whole number. Let's do one of these examples really quick. Let's do example E, 6.24 divided by 200. 6.24 divided by 200. Now this is going to contradict what we've been learning. Our divisor is a whole number. This goes back to our last lesson. So no decimals are going to jump. Not a single decimal is going to jump. That means that my decimal in my dividend just goes straight up. And now this basically becomes 624. 200 will not go into 6. 200 will not go into 62. 200 I know will go into 624 3 times, which will equal 600. Subtract, I only have 24. Now, I can have all the zeros I want because a decimal already exists in my answer. I'll bring down to 0. 200 goes into 240 once, which will be 200. When I subtract, I'll only have 40 left over. Annex another 0. 200 will go into 400 twice, which will equal 400. When I subtract, I got nothing left over. My answer should be 0.0312. We're going to check our answer based on our original problem. 6.24 divided by 200 equals 0.0312. 0.0312. So that was a good example to show that we don't change anything if the divisor is a whole number. It's when the divisor is a decimal that the game changes. This would be another example right here of 0.4 divided by 25. 0.4 divided by 25. Whole number on the outside is our divisor. No decimals are jumping. My decimal on the inside is just going to go straight up in my answer. This will basically become 25. 4 divided by 25, which is not going to happen. 25 cannot go into 0. 25 cannot go into 4. I will now need to annex a 0. Because the decimal's already there, I can annex all the zeros I want. 25 will go into 40 one time. That'll equal 25. I will need to borrow. 10 minus 5 will be 5. 3 minus 2 will be 1. 25 cannot go into 15. Bring down a 0. Now, I know 25 will go into 100 4 times. And I know 25 will go into 50 twice. 4 plus 2 will be 6. So that'll equal 150. I have nothing left over. My answer should be 0.016. And let's see if we did this correctly. Going back to the original problem. 0.4 divided by 25 equals 0.016. 0.016. And we're good. Now, I know this one was kind of a shortish video. We're going to do one of the questions straight from the homework. Let's do question 1. 12.92 divided by 3.4. 12.92 divided by 3.4. 12.92, 12.9, yep, did it right. So, again, our first step is to make our divisor a whole number. This decimal needs to jump all the way to the right. That was only one jump. Whatever happens on the outside, happens on the inside. Our dividend is also a decimal, so it's just going to jump once this way. Decimal will go straight up in the answer here. I'll erase all of this, and now it becomes 1,292 divided by 34. 34 won't go into 1. It won't go into 12. How many times will it go into 129? I'm going to go ahead and move this over here a little bit so I have guess and check room. I'm going to go ahead and guess 4 times, and we'll see if I'm over. 4 times 4 will be 16, carry the 1. 4 times 3 will be 12, plus the 1 will be 13, and I'm definitely over. So I know now it's going to be 3. 3 times 4 will be 12. 3 times 3 is 9, plus the 1. So it'll go in 3 times. That'll be 102. Subtract. 9 minus 2 will give me 7. 2 minus 0 will give me 2. 1 minus 1 will give me 0. And I will bring down my next number. 272. I'm going to go ahead and guess and check. I'm going to say, let's say, okay, so 4 gave me 1. Let me see what 4 gave me again. I'm going to use a different calculator off screen here. 4 gave me 136. We're trying to get to 272. I'm going to go ahead and guess 8 on this one. I think that would be a good guess. 8 times 4 would give me 32. Carry the 3. 8 times 3 would give me 24. Plus the 3 would give me 27. And look at that. I did a really good guess. It will go in 8 times, which is 272. When I subtract, I have nothing left over. My answer should be 3.8. Go back to the original question, which was 12.92 divided by 3.4. Plug it in, 12.92 there we go, divided by 3.4 should give me 3.8. And is that the answer we got? It is 3.8. So again, reviewing the video, going over the notes that we typed up, please, please, please make sure that you put those things that I typed up in your notes. Go ahead and go back to the video, review, pause it if you need to. But again, divisor. If it equals a decimal, you need to make it a whole number. You do that by making the decimal jump to the right, all the way to the right, however many times. It's very important that you count those skip jumps because whatever happens on the outside has to happen on the inside. And that's going to be a big one. That's going to be a call and response in our class. Whatever happens on the outside happens on the inside. If there are 3 jumps on the outside, the inside needs to have 3 jumps. And if the inside is a whole number, add a decimal to the end and annex zeros. As many as you need to have your 1, 2, 3 jumps, whatever jumps you needed. And then remember, once the jumps happen or no jumps happen, if the divisor is a whole number, the decimal will go up into your answer and remember where it needs to go. This is it for chapter 3. Please, if you need to, review all of the lessons, go back and watch notes, whatever you need to, because the test will be coming up. Other than that, I will catch you on the next one. If you have any questions at all, whether you're in my class or not, you can leave comments. If you're in my class, you know the best way to reach me. But if you're not in my class and you're watching this for extra math help, comments are the best way to go, and I can get to you as soon as I can. This is Mr. P, signing off.